Hey guys, tonight we're not just going to tell a story. We're going to put you right in the dusty, unforgiving boots of someone dropped into the heart of the American Old West. Forget the sepia-toned photographs and the heroic movie scenes. We're talking about the raw, visceral reality of what it truly meant to live, or more accurately, try to survive. A day in a time when life was cheap and nature was an indifferent, often deadly, adversary. Imagine, if you will, the creaking protest of worn leather as the stagecoach rattles to a halt, a plume of fine ochre dust billowing around you like a suffocating shroud. The air thick with the scent of sun-baked earth, horse sweat, and something vaguely metallic stings your nostrils. You squint against the relentless glare of a sun that feels like a blacksmith's forge, beating down on a landscape that stretches to the horizon, a mosaic of parched scrub, jagged rock, and an endless, indifferent sky. You probably wouldn't survive this, not even an hour. Your soft, modern hands, accustomed to keyboards and climate control, would blister within minutes. Your sense of comfort, your expectation of immediate gratification, your entire understanding of safety and convenience would shatter like a dropped glass on the hard, unyielding ground. There's no Wi-Fi here, no quick delivery, no emergency services beyond what you can conjure with your own grit and perhaps a prayer. The nearest hospital could be days away, if one even exists. The food is, well, we'll get to that. The water, if you find it, might be the last thing you want to drink. Every decision is life or death. Every shadow might hide a threat. And every day is a test of sheer, animalistic will. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're listening from somewhere specific, why not drop your location and local time in the comments? It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step down from the stagecoach, your boots sinking slightly into the warm, granular earth. The silence, after the rhythmic clatter of hooves and wheels, is profound, punctuated only by the distant caw of a crow and the persistent hum of unseen insects. The air is surprisingly still, yet heavy, pressing down on you like a wool blanket. In August, you glance around, taking in your surroundings. This isn't the bustling frontier town you might have imagined from dime novels. It's a scattering of rough-hewn wooden structures, leaning precariously as if tired of standing there. Windows dark, like vacant eyes. A few horses stand tethered, swishing their tails, their coats caked with dust. The general store, if that's what the largest building is, has a sagging porch and a faded sign depicting something that might once have been a wagon wheel. You notice a dog, ribs showing, scratching lazily at a flea, its tail thumping a slow, weary rhythm against the dirt. The first thing that assaults your senses after the heat is the smell. It's a complex tapestry of odors, sun-baked earth, as mentioned, but also stale sweat, wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and something sharp and metallic, perhaps from the nearby livery stable. You breathe it in, and it's not pleasant, not at all, but it is real, undeniable. This is your new reality. You shift your weight, feeling the unfamiliar stiffness of your own clothes, suddenly aware of how soft and thin your skin feels beneath. Then you quickly realize that your modern sensibilities are a liability here. The concept of personal space is practically non-existent. People move with a certain brusqueness, a nonsense efficiency born of necessity. You see a man spitting tobacco juice into the street without a second thought. Another adjusting a worn holster at his hip, his eyes scanning the horizon with a practiced, wary gaze. There's a quiet tension that hums beneath the surface, a sense that anything could happen at any moment, and you'd better be ready for it. Historians still argue whether this pervasive sense of danger was exaggerated by popular narratives or was truly the defining characteristic of frontier life. Was it constant, low-level anxiety, or did people simply become numb to it? One mainstream historical fact that often gets overlooked in the romanticized versions is just how isolated these settlements were. Think about it. No easy communication, no swift transportation. News traveled at the speed of a horse or a stagecoach, which meant weeks, sometimes months, for information to reach you from the civilized East. You are truly, utterly disconnected here. That letter from home. It's probably still on a train if it hasn't been lost to a flooded river or a bandit raid. It's like living in a perpetual information black hole. It's easy to joke about being off the grid now, but here, the grid doesn't even exist. You are the grid. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but you get the point. A quirky tidbit that might surprise you is the prevalence of saloons that were less about drinking and more about community. While they certainly served alcohol, many also functioned as informal post offices, general meeting places, and even makeshift courts. They were the social hubs, the places where information was exchanged, deals were struck, and disputes were, sometimes, emphasis on sometimes, settled without bloodshed. So, that image of a grizzled frontiersman nursing a whiskey in a dark, silent corner, he might have just been waiting for the mail or for the circuit judge to show up. It's like your local coffee shop, but with more spittoons and far less artisanal oat milk lattes. Good luck finding a single origin pour over here, friend. You take a tentative step forward, and immediately your ankle turns on an uneven patch of ground. You stumble, catching yourself before you fall, and feel a surge of annoyance. This land doesn't care for your delicate balance or your soft feet. It demands respect and a certain amount of constant vigilance. You notice the worn path leading into the main street, carved deep by countless boots and wagon wheels. Each step you take is a reminder of the millions of steps that came before you. Forging this path through sheer willpower and a desperate hope for a better life. Or maybe, just a slightly less terrible one. As you walk, you realize just how exposed you are. No tall buildings to offer shade, no paved roads to cushion your steps. The sun beats down relentlessly, drying your skin and making your lips feel cracked. You can already feel the beginnings of a headache, a dull throb behind your eyes. This isn't just heat. It's an oppressive, draining force that saps your energy with every breath. You instinctively reach for a water bottle that isn't there, a habit from your modern life. The thought sends a pang of something akin to panic. Through you, hydration, you realize, with a sudden, chilling clarity, is not a given here. It's a privilege, a struggle, and very likely, your next big problem. You're already thirsty, and the day has barely begun. The sun, a relentless eye in the vast pale sky, continues its assault. You can feel the moisture practically being wicked from your body. Your throat feels scratchy, and your tongue seems to stick to the roof of your mouth. The memory of a cold, crisp glass of water, perhaps with a slice of lemon, is a cruel phantom. Here, water isn't a tap away. It's a precious commodity, often scarce, frequently contaminated, and always a priority. You start to understand, in a very visceral way, why so many tales of the West featured desperate searches for an oasis, or the grim discovery of a dried-up spring. You quickly learn to scan the landscape, not for beauty, but for signs of life, signs of water. A cluster of cottonwoods might indicate a hidden stream, or a dip in the land could suggest a low-lying area where rainwater might collect, even temporarily. But these are gambles, and often you'd be sorely disappointed. The ground around you is cracked and dusty, not a hint of moisture. You realize that even if you found a water source, it wouldn't be the pristine, filtered stuff you're used to. It would be murky, perhaps stagnant, possibly teeming with unseen bacteria or even parasites. Remember that fancy water filter bottle you carry on hikes? Yeah, that's not happening here. You're looking at a choice between parched dehydration and a potentially debilitating illness. And historians still argue whether more frontiersmen died from contaminated water than from bullet wounds. It's a grim debate, isn't it? The concept of a waterhole in the Old West wasn't just a picturesque phrase from a movie. It was a lifeline, often fiercely guarded. You might encounter a watermaster who controlled access to a well, charging exorbitant prices for a mere bucketful. Or you could find yourself in a standoff with another thirsty traveler, both of you eyeing the same pitiful puddle. This isn't just about survival. It's about the deep-seated human instinct to protect a resource that means the difference between life and a slow, agonizing death. It's like the ultimate FOMO, but for hydration. Except instead of missing out on a party, you're missing out on existing. Consider the journey to the West. Pioneers on the Oregon Trail, a mainstream historical fact, often faced weeks, even months, without reliable water sources. They would carry heavy barrels, hoping to replenish them at known springs or rivers. But rivers could dry up, or be reduced to a muddy trickle, or become so wide and shallow that the water was undrinkable. The sheer logistics of moving hundreds of people, wagons, and livestock across vast stretches of arid land, all while ensuring enough water for everyone, was a monumental challenge. It's a testament to human resilience, or perhaps sheer stubbornness, that anyone made it. A quirky tidbit about water in the West is the practice of water witching or dowsing. People believed certain individuals possessed a mystical ability to locate underground water sources using a forked stick or divining rod. While modern science largely dismisses it as pseudoscience, in a time of desperation, you can imagine how quickly people would cling to any hope, no matter how outlandish. So, you might see a serious-looking individual walking slowly, holding a stick, hoping it would dip dramatically, indicating life-giving water below. It's the original Find My Phone app, but for hydration, and probably less accurate. You continue to walk, and the thirst intensifies. Your mouth feels like sandpaper. You start to salivate just thinking about water, a primal response from your body trying to conjure moisture from nothing. You remember watching a survival show once, where they talked about rationing water, about how much a body could endure. But watching it from your comfortable couch is a far cry from experiencing it in this unforgiving heat. Every step feels heavier, every breath a little more labored. The air itself seems to shimmer above the distant horizon, a mirage of something cool and wet that taunts your desperate mind. You tell yourself it's just the heat, just your imagination playing tricks. But the longing is real. You start to consider your options. Is there a saloon in this dusty town? They'd have water, wouldn't they? Or at least something to drink. But what would the cost be? And would it be safe to drink? You've heard stories of rot-gut whiskey that could peel paint, let alone hydrate you. The choices are not good, and they are few. You pass by a lean-to, a crude shelter of branches and canvas, and catch a glimpse of a grizzled old man, his face weathered like old leather, sipping from a dented tin cup. You eye it longingly, and he catches your gaze. His eyes, clear despite his age, hold a flicker of understanding, perhaps even pity. He doesn't offer, and you don't ask. This isn't a place for handouts. Every drop of water is earned or paid for, often dearly. The scarcity of water shaped everything in the West. It determined where towns were built, where ranches could thrive, and where conflicts erupted. Water rights were often more contentious than land rights, leading to feuds that lasted generations. It's hard for us, with our endless supply of clean, potable water at our fingertips, to truly grasp the profound impact of its absence. Imagine waking up every day knowing that your very existence depends on finding enough water to last through the heat, to keep your animals alive, to grow even the smallest patch of food. It's a level of constant anxiety that most modern humans never experience. It's the ultimate first world problem reversal, where your first world problem is simply getting enough water to not die. You finally reach what appears to be the center of the small settlement. There's a well, but it's covered, a heavy wooden lid secured by a padlock. Beside it, a hand-painted sign, faded and almost illegible, reads something about water for sale. See proprietor. Your heart sinks a little. Even here, in this desolate place, nothing is free. You wipe a bead of sweat from your brow, feeling the gritty dust on your skin. This isn't just a historical exercise anymore. It's a tangible, uncomfortable reality. And you realize, with a heavy sigh, that your day in the Wild West has only just begun. The thirst, however, is a very immediate and very real problem that needs solving. Your parched throat and the gnawing emptiness in your stomach begin a slow, insistent symphony of discomfort. You've successfully navigated the immediate crisis of finding some water, even if it cost you precious coin. Now, the question of food looms large. Forget your balanced diet of fresh produce, lean proteins, and carefully portioned carbs. Here, grub means sustenance, pure and simple, and often it's going to be monotonous, unappetizing, and frankly, a bit questionable. Your digestive system, accustomed to the gentle ministrations of modern food processing, is about to face its ultimate trial by fire. Or rather, by hardtack and rancid bacon. You quickly realize that a trip to the local general store isn't like popping into a grocery superstore. The shelves are sparsely stocked, mostly with essentials: flour, salt, pork, coffee beans, maybe some dried beans or hardtack biscuits. Fresh meat is a luxury, dependent on a successful hunt or the rare arrival of a cattle drive. Fruits and vegetables, a distant memory unless you're lucky enough to pass by a small, struggling garden plot, and even then, whatever's growing is likely destined for the grower's own table, not yours. This isn't about culinary delight, it's about caloric intake. To keep you moving, to keep you alive. Historians still argue whether the lack of varied nutrition contributed significantly to the widespread illness and shorter lifespans of frontier inhabitants. Was scurvy a bigger threat than skirmishes? Your first meal is likely to be a revelation in blandness. Imagine a piece of salt pork, fried to a crisp, its fat glistening, served alongside a hardtack biscuit so dense you could use it as a building material. Hardtack, a mainstream historical fact, was simply flour and water baked and until rock hard to prevent spoilage. It was notorious for breaking teeth, and often the only way to make it edible was to soak it in coffee or water, or try to smash it into crumbs. It's like the original protein bar. If the protein bar was designed by someone who hated you and wanted to make chewing a workout. And yes, it probably had weevils. Don't worry, they're extra protein. Just kidding. Mostly dot. Then there's coffee. Not the fancy artisanal brew you're used to, but strong, bitter, and often boiled for hours over an open fire. It's less a beverage and more a necessary stimulant, a ritual that provided a moment of warmth and a jolt of energy in an otherwise grueling day. It probably tastes like burnt dirt and regret, but you'll drink it and you'll be grateful for it. You quickly learn that even simple things like sugar or molasses, if available, are hoarded like gold. A quirky tidbit. Sometimes, desperate frontiersmen would eat prairie dog meat. While not unheard of, it wasn't a delicacy. Prairie dogs, being burrowing rodents, were often considered disease carriers, and their meat could be tough and gamey. But when hunger gnawed, and other options were non-existent, even a scrawny prairie dog could look like a feast. It's like your last resort option at the drive-thru, but with more digging involved, and a higher chance of fleas. You might try your hand at hunting, but you quickly realize it's not as easy as it looks in the movies. The animals are wary, and you're not exactly a skilled marksman. Even if you get lucky and bag a rabbit or a squirrel, cleaning and cooking it requires skills you don't possess. You're more likely to end up with a singed, half-cooked carcass that tastes vaguely of smoke and disappointment. Your modern culinary skills, which might extend to ordering takeout or microwaving a frozen dinner, are utterly useless here. As for preservation, refrigeration is decades away. So, meat is dried, smoked, or heavily salted. This process, while effective, dramatically changes the texture and flavor, often making it tough, leathery, and intensely salty. Imagine beef jerky, but less appetizing and far more ubiquitous. You'll be chewing for days, and your jaw will ache. Your modern dental plan wouldn't cover the kind of wear and tear your teeth would endure. Here, the monotony is so day after day, it's dried meat, beans, and hardtack. You start to crave anything fresh, anything green. The lack of variety can lead to nutritional deficiencies, making you feel weak, tired, and more susceptible to illness. Your body, used to a constant supply of vitamins and minerals, begins to protest in subtle ways. Brittle nails, dull hair, a general sense of malaise. It's a slow, insidious form of suffering. And then there's the hygiene, or lack thereof, surrounding food. Preparation, open fires, dust, flies, and no easy access to clean water for washing hands or utensils. You learn to ignore the occasional fly landing on your meal or the grit of dust between your teeth. Cleanliness is a luxury you can't afford. Your immune system, so carefully nurtured by sterilized environments, is on constant high alert, fighting off invisible armies of bacteria. It's a miracle anyone survived for long. You might try to supplement your meager diet with foraged plants if you know what you're doing. But one wrong berry or mushroom could lead to a swift, unpleasant end. The knowledge of edible plants was passed down through generations, and you, a modern person, possess none of it. So, you stick to the known, albeit unappealing, staples. Better safe than sorry, even if safe means enduring another meal of lukewarm, slightly gritty beans. Sleeping on an empty or half-empty stomach becomes a regular occurrence. The gnawing hunger might keep you awake, or perhaps the sheer exhaustion from your daily struggles will finally claim you. You dream of feasts, of tables laden with fresh bread, roasted meats, and ripe fruit. Then you wake, and the reality of your meager rations hits you with the harsh light of dawn. The experience of eating in the Wild West isn't just about nutrition, it's about humility. It strips away all your expectations, all your preferences, and leaves you with the raw, fundamental need to simply put something, anything, into your body to keep it running. It's a constant reminder of your vulnerability, of how close you are to the edge. And as you chew another piece of tough, dried meat, you silently acknowledge that this, too, is a battle. One fought 3 times a day, having somewhat addressed the primal screams of hunger and thirst. Your attention inevitably turns to another, far more insidious enemy, the profound and pervasive lack of personal hygiene. Forget your morning shower, your scented soaps, your meticulously brushed teeth, and the comforting freshness of clean clothes. In the Wild West, you are, for all intents and purposes, constantly, deeply, and unapologetically unclean. This isn't just about smelling a bit ripe. It's about a constant, grinding discomfort that affects every aspect of your day, opening the door to myriad health risks. Your skin, accustomed to gentle cleansers and regular hydration, is in full revolt. You wake up feeling gritty. Not just a little bit of dust, but a fine layer that seems to have permeated every pore, every fold of your clothing. Your hair feels greasy and matted, your teeth are fuzzy, and a vaguely unpleasant odor seems to cling to you like a second skin. Water, as we've established, is precious, far too precious for frivolous bathing. A quick splash of cold, murky water on your face might be the extent of your morning ablutions. The idea of a full bath is a distant, luxurious dream. Perhaps a once a month, if you're lucky, indulgence at a public bathhouse, which itself would likely be less than pristine. Historians still argue whether the widespread lack of hygiene or the primitive medical knowledge was the greater contributor to disease outbreaks. It's a chicken or egg situation. If the egg was covered in grime and the chicken had dysentery, your clothes are another story. They are probably the only set you own, or perhaps one of 2. They get worn, slept in, worked in, and exposed to all the elements. The concept of a laundry day is laughable. Washing clothes is an arduous task, requiring a significant amount of water, soap if you can get it, and manual labor. So, your garments accumulate layers of sweat, dirt, dust, and whatever else the day throws at you. You learn to ignore the stiffness of the fabric, the faint, lingering odors that become part of your personal aura. It's like wearing a permanent, slightly crusty second skin. And yes, you probably have fleas. They're just part of the package. It's an ecosystem on your person. A mainstream historical fact often overlooked is the sheer prevalence of lice and fleas. These tiny, persistent creatures were a fact of life for almost everyone, regardless of social standing. They lived in clothing, bedding, and hair, causing constant itching and discomfort. It wasn't uncommon to see people, even in public, casually scratching or picking at their clothing. There was no readily available pesticide or effective repellent. You just learned to live with a constant, itchy companions. It's like having a permanent, miniature, irritating fan club. The lack of dental hygiene is particularly grim. You have no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no regular dental checkups. You might rub your teeth with a rough cloth or chew on a stick, but effective cleaning is impossible. Food particles linger, leading to decay, infections, and inevitably tooth loss. A toothache in this era is not just an inconvenience. It's a debilitating agony that can lead to abscesses, sepsis, and even death. Many frontiersmen suffered from chronic dental pain, their faces often swollen and scarred. It's enough to make you truly appreciate your fluoride toothpaste, isn't it? That little minty fresh feeling is a true luxury, a quirky tidbit that might make you wince. Some pioneers, in an attempt to clean their mouths, would rinse with a mixture of urine and ash. While this sounds utterly disgusting to modern ears, the ammonia in urine and the abrasive nature of ash were believed to have some cleansing properties. Whether it actually worked or just made things smell worse is up for debate. But it highlights the desperation and the sheer lack of alternatives. It's the ultimate DIY oral care, not recommended for home use. Body odor is another inescapable reality. Without regular bathing or access to deodorants, everyone, and we mean everyone, smells. The air in any crowded indoor space, a saloon, a general store, a bunkhouse would be thick with the combined aromas of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, tobacco smoke, and perhaps a faint hint of something vaguely reminiscent of old socks left. In a gym bag, you quickly become desensitized to it, but the initial assault on your olfactory senses is potent. Your personal space bubble, it just popped. The constant grime also leads to skin infections, cuts and scrapes, which are common given the rugged environment and physical labor, easily become infected without proper cleaning and care. Small sores fester, insect bites swell, and rashes are a common nuisance. Your skin, the largest organ, is under constant assault, and its ability to protect you is compromised. It's a battle against invisible enemies, fought on the battlefield of your own body. Even your sleeping conditions are far from sterile. You might be sleeping on a thin mattress filled with straw, which is a perfect breeding ground for insects. Or you might be sleeping on the ground, wrapped in a blanket that has seen better centuries. The concept of clean linens, or a sanitized sleeping surface, simply doesn't exist. You're constantly exposed to dirt, dust, and creepy crawlies, even when you're trying to rest. The mental toll of perpetual uncleanliness is also significant. While you might become somewhat accustomed to it, there's an underlying sense of discomfort that rarely abates. The itching, the smell, the general grimy feeling. It's a constant, low-level irritation that wears you down, adding another layer of stress to an already stressful existence. You might find yourself constantly fidgeting, scratching, and longing for the simple pleasure of feeling truly clean. It's a subtle form of torture, yet undeniably effective. And you realize that your entire understanding of clean has been fundamentally reshaped by this harsh, new world. The constant grime, the questionable water, and the monotonous diet have already started to take their toll, and now you face the chilling reality of medical care in the Wild West, or, more accurately, the profound lack of it. Forget your local urgent care clinic, your specialist appointments, or even a well-stocked pharmacy. Here, a simple cut can become a life-threatening infection. A nagging cough can escalate into pneumonia, and a broken bone can mean permanent disability or worse. Your body, accustomed to the swift and expert ministrations of modern medicine, is left largely to its own devices. You get a nasty splinter while chopping wood, a mundane, everyday occurrence back home. Here, it's a potential disaster. Without sterile tools or antiseptic, that tiny wound quickly becomes inflamed, red, and swollen. Pain shoots up your arm. You try to dig it out with a rusty knife, making it worse, introducing more bacteria. You might hear whispers of folk remedies, a poultice of chewed tobacco, or perhaps a strange herbal concoction, but their efficacy is dubious at best, and historians still argue whether the widespread belief in ineffective remedies, prolonged suffering, or offered crucial placebo effects was hope, however misplaced, a more powerful medicine than the actual stuff. If you're lucky, there might be a doctor in the nearest town, though that term is used very loosely. This individual might be a trained physician, but more often they are a self-taught practitioner, an apothecary with some basic surgical skills, or perhaps a dentist who doubles as a general practitioner. Their medical bag is likely sparse. A few basic instruments, some opium for pain, perhaps a bottle of questionable elixirs with alcohol as the primary ingredient. They operate without anesthesia for most procedures, without antibiotics, and certainly without any understanding of germ theory. The idea of sterile surgical conditions is simply non-existent. Imagine a broken leg. In your world, it means an ambulance, an emergency room, x-rays, a cast, and rehabilitation. Here, it means excruciating pain, a makeshift splint made from sticks and rags, and weeks or months of immobility during which you are completely vulnerable. If the bone sets improperly, you're left with a permanent limp. If infection sets in, a high probability, given the open wound and lack of hygiene, you might face the grim prospect of amputation, and that, a mainstream historical fact, was often performed with a saw and a shot of whiskey, if you were lucky. The screaming, the blood, the sheer brutality of it all. It's a scene out of a nightmare, and it was a stark reality for countless individuals. A quirky tidbit about medicine in the West is the widespread use of patent medicines. These were often concoctions of various herbs, alcohol, and sometimes even opiates or cocaine, marketed with grand claims of curing everything from consumption to baldness. Dr. McGregor's miracle elixir, or Peruna, promised wondrous cures, but in reality, they often simply numbed the pain or offered a temporary narcotic high. People, desperate for relief, would spend their meager savings on these bottles, clinging to any hope they offered, regardless of how outlandish the claims. It's like your current array of dubious wellness supplements, but with far more actual narcotics. Childbirth, too, was an incredibly perilous event. Without proper prenatal care, sanitation, or skilled midwives, both mother and child faced immense risks. Infant and maternal mortality rates were shockingly high. It was a testament to the sheer resilience of women that they endured such dangers. To bring new life into the world, every birth was a gamble, every healthy child a miracle. Even common illnesses like a bad cold or influenza could become deadly. Without understanding viruses or bacteria, people had no concept of how diseases spread. Quarantines were rare, and outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, or smallpox could decimate entire towns. You might wake up feeling a bit under the weather, and by sundown, you could be delirious with fever, your life hanging by a thread. There's no hospital bed with 4 fluids here, no kindly nurse to check your vitals. You either fight it off with your own weakened immune system, or you succumb. The absence of pain relief beyond opium or alcohol meant enduring suffering that is unimaginable to us. A severe toothache, a festering wound, the agony of a setting bone, these were simply things to be endured, a constant companion that wore down your spirit and physical reserves. Many people learned to self-medicate with alcohol, turning to drink not for pleasure, but for the temporary oblivion it offered from chronic pain. You start to notice the physical scars on the people around you. Missing fingers, limps, clouded eyes. These aren't just badges of honor. They're grim reminders of close calls, of the body's struggles against overwhelming odds. Every older person you meet is a walking testament to survival, their very existence a defiance of the brutal medical realities of the time. Your own body, still feeling the lingering discomfort from the journey, the hunger, and the pervasive grime, seems suddenly fragile. The slightest ache, the smallest scratch, sends a ripple of anxiety through you. You're hyper-aware of your own vulnerability, of the thin line that separates you from debilitating illness or worse. The Wild West isn't just a place of rugged adventure, it's a constant, silent battle for your very physical integrity, waged without the comforting safety net of modern medicine, as if the relentless sun, the gnawing hunger, the pervasive grime, and the terrifying absence of proper medical care weren't enough. You now become acutely aware of the natural world around you, not as a source of picturesque beauty, but as a constant, looming threat. The Wild West isn't just populated by rugged humans, it's teeming with critters and creepers, venomous, dangerous, and often unseen creatures that view you as anything from a potential meal to a perceived threat. Your soft, modern sensibilities about nature are about to be brutally disabused. You're walking across a seemingly innocuous patch of scrubland, perhaps heading to the outhouse, when you hear it, a low, insistent rattling. Your blood runs cold. You freeze, your eyes darting around the dusty ground. There, coiled just a few feet away, is a rattlesnake, its tail vibrating furiously, its triangular head poised, those cold, reptilian eyes fixed on you. This isn't a zoo exhibit. It's a wild, territorial predator, and you've just encroached on its personal space. Your heart pounds against your ribs. Do you run? Do you stand still? Every instinct screams at you to flee, but you've heard the old adage, a sudden movement can provoke an attack. This is a mainstream historical fact that countless pioneers faced daily. The threat of venomous snakes was omnipresent, particularly in warmer months. A bite, far from being a minor inconvenience, could mean days of agonizing pain, swelling, fever, and if severe enough, death, especially without prompt and effective medical attention, which, as you know, is a rare luxury here. There's no anti-venom on standby, no emergency room waiting. Historians still argue whether snake bites or animal attacks caused more fatalities than accidents with firearms. It's a testament to the raw danger of the natural environment. Then there are the spiders. You might brush against a web or reach into a shadowy nook, only to encounter a black widow or a brown recluse. Their bites, while often not immediately fatal, can cause severe pain, muscle cramps, necrotic lesions, and long-term tissue damage. Imagine a festering open wound on your arm or leg, refusing to heal in the oppressive heat, attracting flies and smelling, well, not good. It's the kind of thing that would send you to the ER now, but here, it's just another agonizing hurdle to survival. It's a stark reminder that even the smallest creatures can bring you to your knees. Beyond the creepy crawlies larger predators roam. You might be camping out under the vast star-strewn sky, lulled by the distant howl of a coyote, only to be startled awake by the rustle of nearby brush. A wolf, perhaps, drawn by the scent of your meager rations, or maybe a mountain lion, its eyes glowing in the darkness, a silent, deadly hunter. Protecting your livestock, or even yourself, from these animals requires constant vigilance and often a steady aim. You're not at the top of the food chain out here. You're just another part of it, albeit a rather soft and tasty-looking part to some creatures. It's like living in a nature documentary, except you're the potential prey. No thanks. I'll stick to my sofa and David Attenborough. A quirky tidbit about animal encounters. Pioneers would sometimes report incidents of grizzly bears acting with surprising intelligence, even ambushing travelers or deliberately trying to disable wagons to get to food supplies. While this might sound like something out of a tall tale, it speaks to the formidable cunning of these apex predators and the extreme caution early settlers had to exercise. These weren't just big, dumb animals. They were smart, strong, and highly motivated. It's like they had their own wilderness tactical training. Even seemingly harmless creatures can pose a threat. Scorpions, hiding under rocks or in your boots, deliver painful stings. Swarms of mosquitoes can drive you mad with itching and, more importantly, carry diseases like malaria. Your modern bug spray is useless, and you quickly learn that a good fire and a smoky smudge are your best and often only defense against the constant buzzing annoyance. You're never truly alone out here, and often, your companions are just waiting for an opportunity. The sheer unpredictability of wildlife is another factor. You might encounter a herd of stampeding bison thundering across the plains, an unstoppable force that could crush you and your wagon in seconds. Or a wild, unbroken horse might kick out, breaking a bone. Every step, every moment spent outdoors carries an inherent risk from the living landscape. It's not a petting zoo. No, definitely not a petting zoo. You start to develop an instinctual awareness of your surroundings. Your ears become attuned to the subtle sounds of the wilderness, the rustle that isn't wind, the snap of a twig that isn't a branch falling. Your eyes constantly scan the ground ahead, looking for telltale patterns or movements. You learn to check your boots before putting them on, to shake out your blankets, to keep your fire stoked at night. This heightened sense of vigilance is exhausting, but it's a necessary skill for survival. The psychological toll of this constant threat is immense. You're always on edge, always aware that a hidden danger could be lurking just out of sight. That beautiful, vast landscape suddenly feels less like a panorama and more like a hostile arena. You realize that even when you're alone, you're never truly safe. The Wild West isn't just a place where humans fight other humans. It's a battleground where humanity struggles against the raw, untamed power of nature, and often, nature wins. You've faced the sun's merciless glare, the gnawing hunger, the pervasive grime, the terrifying lack of medicine, and the constant threat of slithering, biting, or clawing creatures. Just when you think you might be getting a handle on the raw elemental dangers of the Wild West, the sky itself decides to remind you who's truly in charge. You quickly learn that weathering the storm out here isn't just a metaphor. It's a daily, brutal battle against extreme and wildly unpredictable conditions that can test your endurance to its absolute limits, leaving you vulnerable, exposed, and often utterly helpless. One moment the sun is blazing down, baking the earth into a cracked, unyielding surface, and the next, the sky turns a menacing bruised purple. You feel the air grow heavy, charged with an invisible electricity, and then the wind whips up, tearing at your clothes, stinging your eyes with dust and grit. This is a prairie thunderstorm, a mainstream historical fact that was a sudden, violent spectacle. It's not your gentle summer shower. It's a furious onslaught of wind, blinding rain, and deafening thunder that seems to rip the very sky apart. You scramble for shelter, but there's often nowhere to go but a flimsy lean-to or the meager cover of a rock outcropping. The rain, when it comes, isn't a trickle. It's a deluge, turning the dusty ground into instant, treacherous mud, washing away trails, and soaking you to the bone in moments. And historians still argue whether flash floods or prolonged droughts were more devastating to early settlements. Was it the sudden terror or the slow, grinding despair that broke more spirits? Then there are the extremes of temperature. Summer days are infernos, the heat oppressive and dehydrating, making every movement an effort. You quickly understand why people moved slower, why they sought the scant shade of a mesquite tree, why every waterhole was so fiercely prized. But the nights can plummet to chilling lows, even after a scorching day. You huddle in your thin blankets, teeth chattering, praying for dawn. The contrast is brutal, and your body struggles to adapt, leaving you constantly fatigued and susceptible to illness. It's like living in a giant, broken thermostat, and it's not just. Summer, winter, when it arrives, can be a merciless, silent killer. Blizzards can sweep in without warning, trapping travelers, burying wagons, and erasing all traces of the trail. The snow isn't soft and picturesque. It's a blinding, swirling force, driven by winds that cut to the bone. Exposed skin quickly succumbs to frostbite, and hypothermia is a constant, terrifying risk. Finding shelter, finding fuel for a fire, and simply staying alive in a whiteout becomes the sole focus of your existence. Many perished, frozen solid, just miles from safety. It's a stark reminder that nature cares not for your plans or your comfort. A quirky tidbit that might surprise you. Pioneers sometimes encountered dry lightning storms. These are thunderstorms where lightning strikes the ground, but very little or no rain falls. The result? A prime setup for devastating wildfires. Imagine the terror of seeing the horizon ablaze, a wall of fire advancing across the plains, driven by the same strong winds that brought the lightning. There's no fire department to call, no escape route. You'd be left with the desperate choice of outrunning it or digging a trench and hoping it passes over you. It's like a Hollywood disaster movie, but with real stakes and real flames, and fewer special effects. Droughts are a slow, agonizing death for the land and for anyone dependent on it. The sun bakes the soil, rivers turn to dust, and crops wither. Animals die, and the sparse vegetation shrivels. You watch as your meager water supply dwindles, knowing that every sip might be your last 4 days. The desperation breeds conflict as people compete for dwindling resources. The landscape becomes a vast, parched canvas of despair, and the dust. Oh, the dust. Dust storms are another harrowing reality. A wall of gritty, suffocating earth, churned up by high winds, can descend upon you in minutes, blotting out the sun and reducing visibility to zero. You breathe it in, it coats everything, gets into your eyes, your mouth, your clothes. It's disorienting, suffocating, and terrifying, leaving you feeling like you've been sandblasted from the inside out. Your lungs, accustomed to clean, filtered air, protest with every wheezing breath. It's like being trapped inside a giant, dirty vacuum cleaner bag. The constant battle against the elements breeds a certain fatalism, but also an incredible resilience. You learn to read the sky, to feel the subtle shifts in the wind, to anticipate the changes. You learn to value even the smallest respite from the sun, the brief coolness of a passing cloud, the miraculous sight of a fresh spring after days of thirst. You learn to make do with what little shelter you have, to conserve every drop of water, to prepare for the worst. The weather dictates everything here. It determines the success or failure of a journey, the viability of a settlement, the very rhythm of life and death. Your modern life, insulated by climate control and immediate forecasts, has completely shielded you from this primal struggle. Here, the weather isn't just something to comment on. It's a force of nature, untamed and indifferent, that demands your respect, your constant vigilance, and sometimes your very life. You've been beaten by the sun, soaked by the rain, choked by the dust, and constantly vigilant against nature's wild inhabitants. Now, as you navigate this relentless environment, a profound realization settles in. Your chances of survival hinge not just on your grit and determination, but on having the right tools of survival, and you quickly learn that proper equipment is essential, often hard to come by, and sometimes the difference between life and a cold, lonely death. Forget your smart devices, your comfortable shoes, or your meticulously organized backpack. Here, every item must serve a vital purpose, and its absence can be catastrophic. Your first few days probably made you keenly aware of your ill-equipped state. Those fancy, soft shoes, useless. You need sturdy leather boots, ideally capable of withstanding sharp rocks, prickly plants, and the occasional snake bite, though they won't guarantee protection. Your light, fashionable clothing, also useless. You need durable, layered garments that can protect you from the sun, the cold, and the abrasive elements. Wool, a mainstream historical fact, was king. It kept you warm when wet, breathed when it was hot, and was incredibly resilient. No fancy moisture-wicking synthetics here, just good, old-fashioned sheep's wool. And historians still argue whether the quality of personal gear or sheer luck played a bigger role in individual survival rates. Was it the tools or the tenacity? A good knife is more than just a cutting implement. It's a multi-tool, a weapon, a repair kit, and sometimes a surgical instrument. You'll use it to prepare food, cut rope, skin game, and maybe even defend yourself. You quickly discover that a dull knife is more dangerous than none at all, and maintaining its edge becomes a critical, meditative task. Then there's the firearm. Whether a revolver or a rifle, it's not just for self-defense against outlaws. It's for hunting game, for signaling, and sometimes for putting down a suffering animal. Ammunition is a precious commodity, hoarded and used sparingly. Every bullet counts. It's like your entire survival kit is reduced to these two things, and you'd better treat them like gold. Consider the simple act of making a fire. You're not just flicking a bic, you need flint and steel, or perhaps a magnifying glass and a sunny day. Then you need tinder, dry grass, bark or fine wood, shavings and kindling, small sticks that will catch quickly. The ability to make fire quickly and reliably, even in adverse conditions, is a critical survival skill. It provides warmth, cooks food, boils water for purification, and offers protection from nocturnal predators. It's the original, universal, remote, but for staying alive. A quirky tidbit that demonstrates resourcefulness. Many frontiersmen carried a small, durable oilcloth or waxed canvas. This seemingly simple item served multiple purposes: a waterproof ground cover, a makeshift shelter, a poncho, a bag for carrying provisions, or even a sling for an injured arm. Its versatility made it an invaluable, multifunctional tool in an environment where specialized gadgets were non-existent. It's like the Swiss Army knife of fabrics. Water containers are also essential. A sturdy canteen, ideally made of metal or treated leather, is vital for carrying your precious water supply. You can't rely on finding water everywhere, And when you do, you need a way to transport it. Without a good canteen, you're constantly tethered to the nearest and often distant water source. Shelter too often comes down to your own ingenuity and the limited tools at hand. A canvas tarp, some rope, and a few sturdy branches can become a lean-to, offering rudimentary protection from the elements. But this isn't your comfortable tent with an air mattress. It's a minimalist shield against a harsh world, often offering little more than a barrier between you and the ground, and perhaps a slight break from the wind. Even seemingly minor items take on immense importance. A sturdy shovel or digging tool could be used to dig a latrine, create a fire pit, or even dig a defensive position. Rope is invaluable for securing loads, setting traps, or making repairs. A good, reliable compass, if you're lucky enough to have one, can mean the difference between finding your way and getting hopelessly lost in vast, unmarked territory. The weight of your gear is a constant consideration. Every ounce counts, especially if you're traveling on foot or with a heavily loaded wagon. You learn to strip away anything non-essential, to prioritize function over comfort or sentimentality. Your entire existence becomes focused on utility. The feeling of being without a crucial tool is a profound sense of vulnerability. You might have left something behind, or it might have broken, or simply run out. That moment of realization, I need X, and I don't have it, sends a chilling jolt of fear through you. It's not just inconvenient, it's potentially fatal. The Wild West teaches you a brutal lesson in preparedness and the unforgiving nature of scarcity. Your current life, with its endless array of specialized gadgets and readily available replacements, feels impossibly luxurious by comparison. You learn that in this world, truly, a stitch in time saves 9, and having the right tools can save your life. You've wrestled with the elements, dodged nature's less than friendly inhabitants, and cursed the limitations of your tools. Now, you arrive in what passes for civilization, a frontier town. But don't let the word town fool you. Town life here is far from the bustling, orderly settlements of the East. It's a rough and tumble existence, a volatile mix of hope, desperation, opportunity, and constant peril. Even within these clustered buildings, dangers lurk, from outright lawlessness to the insidious spread of disease, making your supposed refuge feel less like a haven and more like a barely contained powder keg. You walk down the main street, which is less a street and more a wide, dusty track churned by wagon wheels and hooves. The buildings are mostly single-story, constructed of raw timber, looking as though they were thrown up in a hurry and might collapse at any moment. There's a general store, a saloon or several, a livery stable, perhaps a blacksmith, and a few scattered dwellings. The air hangs heavy with the smells of horse manure, stale beer, wood smoke, and unwashed bodies, a familiar bouquet now. This isn't the tidy, planned community you're used to. It's an organic, often chaotic, collection of structures that sprang up around a water source, a mining claim, or a river crossing. Historians still argue whether the prevalence of saloons facilitated necessary social cohesion or fueled the widespread violence. Was it a community center or a catalyst for chaos? One of the most immediate dangers you encounter in a frontier town is lawlessness. With limited or non-existent law enforcement, disputes are often settled through personal violence, not legal. Recourse, shootouts, bar fights, and street brawls are not uncommon. You learn to walk with your head up, your eyes scanning, and to avoid drawing attention to yourself. A wrong look, a careless word, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time could easily escalate into a deadly confrontation. This isn't like the polite disagreements you're used to. Here, insults are often followed by fists, and arguments can quickly lead to drawn guns. It's like living in a permanent high-stakes game of dodge the drama. But the stakes are your actual teeth, or worse. Then there's the pervasive issue of disease. Despite being clustered, these towns are hotbeds for contagion. Sanitation is practically non-existent. Outhouses are simple pits, often overflowing. Garbage is dumped in alleys or outside town limits, attracting vermin. Animals wander freely, adding to the filth. Water sources, even wells, can easily become contaminated. This creates perfect breeding grounds for typhoid, cholera, dysentery, and other infectious diseases. A mainstream historical fact that decimated many frontier populations. A new arrival, even if seemingly healthy, could unwittingly bring in a new strain of illness, sparking an epidemic that would sweep through the unimmunized population with terrifying speed. There's no public health department, no understanding of germ theory, just people falling ill, often dying, with little to no explanation. A quirky tidbit about frontier towns is the concept of a false front. Many buildings, particularly saloons and general stores, were built with tall, impressive-looking facades that extended above the rest of the structure. This made the building appear larger and more substantial from the dusty street, giving an illusion of permanence and prosperity that often belied the flimsy construction behind it. It was a bit of frontier marketing, a way to make a temporary shack look like a grand establishment. It's like the original Instagram filter, but for architecture, gambling dens and brothels, while often illegal, flourished in these towns, attracting a transient population and a fair share of criminal elements. They offered fleeting moments of pleasure or distraction, but also often led to financial ruin, addiction, and violence. You see the signs of desperation and fleeting fortune in the faces of those who frequent these establishments. Hope, despair, and a raw craving for something, anything, to break the monotony. Fire is another constant threat. Buildings are made of wood, often dry and packed tightly together. Heating and cooking are done with open flames. A single spark, a careless cigarette, or a forgotten lantern could ignite a devastating blaze that would sweep through the town with terrifying speed, leaving nothing but ashes. Without organized fire departments or abundant water, there was little to stop it. Many towns burned down repeatedly, only to be rebuilt from the rubble, a testament to the stubbornness of those who called them home. Even social interactions are different. People are wary, their expressions often guarded. Trust is earned slowly, if at all. Everyone has a past, and asking too many questions is generally frowned upon. You learn to observe, to listen more than you speak, and to pick up on the subtle cues of this rough-edged society. The unspoken rules are often the most important, and breaking them can have severe consequences. The sheer transience of the population also contributes to the instability. People come and go, seeking their fortune, moving on when luck runs out. This constant flux prevents the establishment of strong, stable communities and institutions. It's a place of perpetual motion, a human tide ebbing and flowing. Each person a solitary ship navigating treacherous waters. You might seek solace in a saloon, perhaps for a moment of warmth or a glass of something to dull the aches of the day. But even there, the air is thick with smoke, the talk is often coarse, and the atmosphere can shift from camaraderie to confrontation in an instant. Your senses are constantly assaulted, the clatter of poker chips, the tinny sound of a piano, the shouts and laughter, underscored by an almost imperceptible hum of tension. And as you try to find a quiet corner, you realize that even in a town, true safety is a mirage, and every interaction carries a hidden weight. You've seen the physical dangers of the wild West and experienced the fragility of life in a frontier town. Now, you face a different, yet equally terrifying reality, the ambiguous and often brutal concept of law of the land or lack thereof. Forget due process, Miranda rights, or appeals courts. Here, justice is swift, harsh, and often dispensed by individuals or makeshift groups, not by established, impartial institutions. Your understanding of order and fairness is about to be completely ended in many frontier settlements. Formal law enforcement was virtually non-existent, especially in the earliest days. There were no uniformed police officers, no established sheriff's departments with clear jurisdictions. Instead, you found a patchwork of informal justice. Sometimes, a well-respected figure, a saloon owner, a rancher, or simply an imposing individual might serve as a de facto arbiter of disputes. Other times, it fell to the community itself to enforce some semblance of order. Historians still argue whether these vigilante forms of justice were a necessary evil for maintaining order or merely a justification for mob rule and personal vendettas. Was it raw justice or just raw power? A mainstream historical fact is the rise of vigilante committees. When crime became rampant and traditional law enforcement was absent or ineffective, citizens would often band together to take matters into their own hands. These groups, sometimes numbering in the hundreds, would track down criminals, hold impromptu trials, and dole out punishments, which often included banishment, flogging, or, famously, lynching. While they often brought a temporary reduction in crime, they were also prone to abuses, targeting innocent individuals or being used to settle personal scores. It was a terrifying form of self-governance, a chilling reminder that in the absence of law, chaos could be tempered only by fear. It's like your neighborhood watch, but with far more actual hanging. You witness a dispute over a mining claim, or perhaps a stolen horse. In your world, lawyers would be consulted, evidence presented, and a judge would preside. Here, it's a shouting match that escalates quickly. Two men draw revolvers, and the sound of gunfire rips through the dusty street. One man falls, clutching his chest. The other stands over him, smoking gun in hand. What happens next? Sometimes, nothing. Sometimes, the crowd disperses, and the matter is considered settled. Other times, the remaining townsfolk decide to act as jury and executioner on the spot. You realize that a man's life can be extinguished in seconds, and there's often no one to hold the killer accountable unless someone else decides to take up the cause. Consider a stop at a remote watering hole or a small, isolated trading post. You might encounter individuals or groups with entirely different customs, languages, or intentions. Interactions with Native American tribes, for instance, could range from peaceful trade to deadly conflict. The frontier was a volatile meeting ground of cultures, each with its own history, grievances, and interpretations of land and resources. A misunderstanding, a perceived slight, or simply existing on contested land could ignite a devastating confrontation. Your modern diplomatic skills, honed by social media, are utterly useless here. You're navigating a minefield of potential. Cultural clashes with no guidebook, a quirky tidbit that highlights unexpected dangers. Some friendly towns were run by corrupt officials or local bullies who would harass, extort, or even murder newcomers, knowing there would be little consequence. These weren't necessarily outlaws in the traditional sense, but rather individuals in positions of power who abused their authority. You might find yourself subject to arbitrary taxes, forced purchases, or simply unwelcome intimidation. It's like dealing with the worst kind of bureaucratic nightmare. But instead of red tape, there's a loaded shotgun. Then there's the danger from desperate individuals. Hunger, thirst, and sheer hardship can drive people to extreme measures. A seemingly harmless drifter might turn hostile if he perceives you as having something he desperately needs: water, food, or a horse. The line between law-abiding citizen and desperate criminal was often blurred by the brutal realities of survival. You learn to be cautious even with those who appear to be suffering, for desperation can make a person unpredictable and dangerous. The sheer transience of the population also means that most people are strangers. There's no established community to vouch for someone's character. Everyone has a past, and on the frontier, those pasts are often deliberately obscured. The quiet, unassuming man sitting in the corner of the saloon might be a hardened criminal, or a respected pioneer, or a man running from his past. You simply don't know, and the stakes are too high to guess incorrectly. It's a bit like living in a permanent game of werewolf, but the actual werewolf can kill you. Even seemingly casual interactions can be fraught with peril. A poker game can turn deadly over a perceived cheat. A drunken argument in a saloon can escalate into a knife fight. The quickness to resort to violence, stemming from a lack of formal justice and a culture of self-reliance, means that any disagreement can become a life or death struggle. Your instinct to de-escalate, to talk things out, feels utterly inadequate here. You also learn about the dangers of deception and trickery. Con artists, snake oil salesmen, and swindlers preyed on the naive and the desperate, promising riches, or miracle cures, only to disappear with your last few coins. Trust is a luxury you can rarely afford, and skepticism becomes your constant companion. The psychological toll of these dangerous encounters is profound. You are constantly on guard, never truly relaxing, always assessing threats, always anticipating trouble. This hypervigilance is exhausting, wearing down your nerves and making you question everyone's motives. You learn to project a certain toughness, a "don't mess with me" demeanor, even if inside you're trembling. It's a performance you must maintain, for your very survival depends on convincing others that you are not an easy target. And as you try to navigate this treacherous social landscape, you realize that the Wild West truly is a place where every stranger could be a friend, or an enemy, or something in between, and the cost of being wrong is impossibly high. You've become a master of cautious observation, a connoisseur of grit, and a reluctant expert in basic survival. Having navigated the natural threats and human perils, you now confront another fundamental aspect of life in the Wild West: the necessity of the art of the deal. Forget credit cards, online shopping, or fixed prices. Bartering and trading are essential skills for acquiring necessities in a cash-poor economy, where actual money is scarce, and ingenuity, resourcefulness, and a sharp eye for value are your most valuable currencies. You approach the general store, not with a shopping list and a wallet, but with an inventory of what you possess that might be valuable. Perhaps a spare blanket, a well-maintained tool, or even a unique skill like mending leather. You learn that cash, while accepted, is often less desirable than goods or services. The store owner might need a new saddle, or some fresh game, or perhaps your help with a leaky roof. This isn't a transaction. It's a negotiation, a give and take, where both parties try to maximize their gain. A mainstream historical fact is the pervasive use of bartering due to the scarcity of currency, especially in remote areas. Coins were often in short supply, and paper money could be viewed with suspicion, or simply be impractical for small transactions. This reliance on trade fostered a different kind of economic relationship, built more on immediate need and perceived value than on abstract monetary systems. Historians still argue whether this informal economy fostered greater community bonds or encouraged more pervasive exploitation. Did it build trust or just amplify cunning? You try to trade a worn but serviceable pair of boots for some coffee beans and flour. The store owner eyes your boots, then your face, assessing your desperation. He offers you half the amount of coffee you need. You counter, pointing out a small tear in a sack of beans on his shelf. The negotiation is a dance, a subtle power, struggle where wit and perception are key. There's no fixed price, no clear-cut value. Everything is negotiable, from a handful of nails to the cost of a night's lodging. It's like a permanent garage sale, but with higher stakes and fewer matching socks. A quirky tidbit that showcases this economic flexibility. Sometimes, skilled individuals like blacksmiths, carpenters, or even doctors would accept payment in kind, not just goods, but also labor. A doctor might treat your broken arm in exchange for a few days of work on his farm, or a carpenter might fix your wagon in return for a share of your next hunting haul. This created a complex web of reciprocal obligations and services that formed the backbone of many frontier communities. It's the ultimate gig economy, but with less app development and more literal barn raising. You quickly learn to assess the value of goods, not just in terms of their material worth, but in their utility. A rusty nail, if it's the only one available, could be more valuable than a shiny coin if you desperately need it to repair your wagon. Tobacco might be traded for a hot meal or a worn coat for a place by the fire. Scarcity drives value, and necessity dictates priorities. Your understanding of what constitutes wealth shifts dramatically. The integrity of a person's word also becomes a crucial part of the deal. Without formal contracts or legal recourse, many transactions relied entirely on a handshake and a person's reputation. A reputation for honesty and fairness was incredibly valuable, ensuring future opportunities for trade. Conversely, a reputation for being a swindler or a cheat would quickly spread, making it difficult to do business with anyone. Trust was a hard-won currency, more valuable than gold in the long run. Even within towns, this bartering culture persisted. You might see a farmer trading his surplus eggs for fabric from the general store, or a hunter exchanging a deer hide for repairs at the blacksmith. It was a fluid system, constantly adapting to the immediate needs and surpluses of individuals and the community. This informal economy often bypassed the need for formal banks or established financial institutions, operating on a more personal, direct level. The act of trading also provides social interaction, a rare commodity in isolated areas. It's a chance to gather information, hear news, and gauge the general pulse of the community. A savvy trader might learn about upcoming opportunities or potential dangers simply by listening carefully during a negotiation. It's not just about goods, it's about connection. But there are also risks. Being swindled or shortchanged could have devastating consequences. Giving away too much in a trade could leave you vulnerable later. You learn to be shrewd, to haggle, to walk away if the terms aren't right. It's a constant mental exercise, a game of calculated risk and reward, played with very real consequences as you conclude a successful trade. Walking away with the flour and coffee you desperately need, you feel a sense of primal satisfaction. You didn't just buy something, you earned it through your wits and your understanding of this unique economic landscape. You realize that the ability to assess, negotiate, and establish trust in a world without formal currencies is a critical survival skill, one that shapes every aspect of your daily existence. It's a gritty, tangible form of commerce, far removed from the abstract digital transactions of your former life, and it keeps you alive. You've braved the sun, the hunger, the grime, the sparse medical care, the fluid law, the crushing isolation, and mastered the subtle art of bartering. Now, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the vast sky in hues of orange and purple, a different kind of challenge emerges, the near impossibility of truly restorative sleep. In the Wild West, sleep, what's that? Finding safe and comfortable rest is a constant challenge, leaving you perpetually exhausted, your body and mind worn thin by the relentless demands of survival. You lie down, perhaps on the hard, unforgiving ground wrapped in a thin blanket, or on a lumpy, straw-filled mattress in a crowded bunkhouse. The first thing you notice is the noise. It's not the gentle hum of city traffic or the distant drone of an airplane. It's the raw, untamed soundtrack of the frontier, the howling of coyotes in the distance, the chirping of unseen insects, the rustle of wind through dry grass, the creak of old timber, or perhaps the raucous laughter and shouts from a nearby saloon. There's no escaping it, and your modern brain, accustomed to soundproofing and quiet, struggles to filter it out. Historians still argue whether the constant vigilance and lack of deep sleep contributed significantly to the perceived irritability and short tempers of frontiersmen. Was it the dangers, or just perpetual exhaustion, that made everyone so quick to draw? Then there's the discomfort. The ground is hard, uneven, and often cold. Rocks dig into your back, and the dust seems to settle on every inch of your exposed skin. If you're indoors, the air might be stale, smoky, and filled with the mingled odors of unwashed bodies. There are no plush pillows, no soft mattresses, no climate control. You might wake up shivering, or sweating, or with an ache in every joint. Your body, used to ergonomic comfort, protests loudly. It's like trying to sleep on a trampoline during a rock concert in the middle of a desert. Not ideal for catching those Z's. The constant threat of danger also gnaws at the edges of your consciousness, making deep, restful sleep almost impossible. You might be listening for the subtle sounds of approaching riders, or the slither of a snake, or the distant call of a predator. Every creak, every shadow, every unexpected sound sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. You sleep lightly, your senses on high alert, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. This a mainstream historical fact was essential for survival, but it came at a profound cost to physical and mental well-being. Your brain never truly switches off, always scanning for threats. A quirky tidbit: some frontiersmen would sleep with their boots on, or at least very close by, and their firearms within arm's reach. This wasn't just for quick departures. It was a psychological comfort, a way to feel prepared for any sudden emergency, whether it was an attack by bandits, a raging fire, or a sudden stampede of animals. The act of fully undressing and settling down was a luxury few could afford, both literally and psychologically. It's like having your emergency bug-out bag under your pillow. But your pillow is a saddle, the short hours of darkness in summer, or the long, bitter nights of winter, also dictates your sleep patterns. You wake with the sun, ready to face the day's endless tasks, and you sleep when darkness forces you to. There's no leisurely line, no hitting the snooze button. Your body's natural rhythms are dictated by the sun and the raw demands of survival, not by your alarm clock. You're often working from dawn till dusk, then attempting to sleep in conditions that are far from conducive to rest. Even when you do manage to drift off, your sleep is often disturbed. The need to stand watch, the call of nature in the middle of a cold night, the discomfort of an upset stomach from questionable food, or simply the gnawing anxiety about the next day's challenges. Your dreams, if you have any, might be vivid and unsettling, reflecting the anxieties of your waking life. The cumulative effect of this perpetual sleep deprivation is profound. Your judgment becomes clouded, your reactions slow, and your mood becomes irritable. You find it harder to concentrate, to solve problems, or to maintain a positive outlook. Every task feels heavier, every minor setback more significant. Your body aches, your eyes burn, and a persistent fog seems to cling to your brain. It's not just about feeling tired. It's about a fundamental erosion of your physical and mental capacities. You see the same exhaustion in the faces of others around you, the hollow eyes, the deep lines of fatigue, the slow, deliberate movements. Everyone is tired, perpetually on the brink of collapse, pushing through each day on sheer willpower. It creates a shared sense of weary camaraderie, but also an underlying tension. A tired person is more prone to mistakes, more likely to snap, and more vulnerable to danger as you try to settle for another night. Pulling your blanket tighter against the chill, or stuffing a rolled-up shirt under your head, you realize the true luxury of a good night's sleep. It's not just rest, it's a reset, a balm for the body and soul. Here, that balm is rarely applied, and you exist in a state of constant, low-grade exhaustion, forever craving the deep, uninterrupted slumber that seems to be an impossible dream in the relentless Wild West. You've been relentlessly hammered by the sun, plagued by thirst and hunger, coated in grime, exposed to medieval medicine, navigating arbitrary law, enduring profound isolation, mastering primitive commerce, and living in a state of perpetual sleep deprivation. After all this, you begin to understand that survival in the Wild West isn't just about physical endurance. It's a grueling test of inner strength. Mental fortitude needed isn't just a suggestion. It's an absolute requirement. For the psychological toll of constant hardship pushes many to their breaking point, and despair is as lethal a foe as any rattlesnake or outlaw. Every single day is a grind. You wake up exhausted, face immediate threats, wrestle with discomfort, and end the day just as tired, if not more so. This unrelenting pressure, without the escape valves of modern life, entertainment, easy communication, consistent comfort, wears down your spirit. The sheer monotony of the struggle, the endless cycle of basic survival, can feel like a crushing weight. You might find yourself staring blankly into the distance, a profound sense of weariness settling over you, wondering how much longer you can endure. Historians still argue whether the frontier fostered unprecedented resilience or simply a higher tolerance for suffering before people completely broke. Was it true grit, or just a slow descent into madness for many? The profound isolation, as discussed, plays a huge role in this mental battle. You are often alone, or surrounded by strangers with whom you share little genuine connection. There's no one to truly confide in, no easy way to express your fears or frustrations. This lack of emotional support can lead to profound loneliness, a gnawing ache that eats away at your resolve. You might find yourself talking to yourself or to your horse just to hear a familiar voice. It's like being perpetually stuck in a bad Zoom call, but without the option to just hang up and mute the world. Then there's the constant low-level anxiety. Every rustle in the bushes, every distant shout, every cloud on the horizon, each could signal a new danger. You are perpetually on guard, your fight-or-flight response subtly activated. This sustained state of stress, a mainstream historical fact, drains your mental reserves, leading to irritability, difficulty concentrating, and often bouts of irrational fear. Your brain, wired for occasional bursts of stress, is now operating in a perpetual state of emergency, and it's simply not built for that. You find yourself snapping at small irritations or becoming disproportionately angry over minor setbacks. Your fuse is very, very short. The lack of control is another heavy burden. So much of your life is dictated by forces beyond your influence. The weather, the availability of water, the movements of animals, the whims of other, often dangerous, people. You can plan, you can prepare, but ultimately, you are at the mercy of a harsh and unpredictable environment. This sense of powerlessness can lead to feelings of hopelessness, a feeling that your efforts are ultimately futile. It's like trying to play a video game on the hardest difficulty, but the controller keeps randomly disconnecting, a quirky tidbit that showcases unusual coping mechanisms. Some frontiersmen developed highly superstitious behaviors, clinging to charms, rituals, or omens in an attempt to exert some perceived control over their uncontrollable world. A lucky coin, a particular way of saddling a horse, or avoiding certain paths were not just quirks. They were desperate attempts to impose order on chaos, a psychological balm against overwhelming randomness. It's like having a dozen tiny, illogical comfort blankets in a world that's constantly trying to set you on fire. Witnessing hardship and death is also a constant presence. You see people fall ill and die without aid, witness violence, and encounter the grim aftermath of accidents. These experiences, without the buffering of modern societal norms or grief, counseling, desensitize you, yet also leave deep emotional scars. You learn to steel yourself, to compartmentalize trauma, because dwelling on it would be a luxury you cannot afford. But the images, the sounds, the smells, they linger, haunting your few restless moments of quiet. The loss of familiar routines, comforts, and social structures also contributes to mental strain. Your old identity, your sense of purpose, derived from a more structured society, might feel irrelevant here. You are stripped bare, forced to confront a primal version of yourself, and that can be a deeply unsettling experience. Who are you when all your former markers of identity are gone? The lure of alcohol, or even opium, for those who could get it, became a powerful coping mechanism for many. It offered temporary oblivion, a fleeting escape from the relentless anxieties and discomforts of frontier life. But it was a double-edged sword, leading to addiction, further vulnerability, and often more problems. It was a self-medication that often caused more harm than good, a sad testament to the depths of despair many faced as you stare into the flickering flames of your meager campfire or lie awake on your hard bed. You confront the profound psychological battle within. It's not enough to be physically strong. You must be mentally unbreakable, resilient in the face of constant adversity, capable of pushing back against the encroaching tide of despair. The Wild West doesn't just demand your body, it demands your very soul, testing the limits of your will to survive. You've built up an impressive resilience, both physical and mental, having faced down most of the fixed challenges the Wild West can throw at you. But this vast, untamed land is rarely static, and your survival often hinges on movement. You quickly realize that the perils of travel are constant and unforgiving. Journeys are long, arduous, and filled with unforeseen dangers and breakdowns, making every mile a hard-won victory against the elements, the landscape, and sheer bad luck. You might be traveling by horseback, the rhythmic sway of the saddle becoming both a comfort and a torment, or perhaps by wagon, the creaking of the wheels a constant companion. Either way, the road is often little more than a dusty trail, carved by countless hooves and previous wagons, sometimes barely discernible from the surrounding wilderness. Every rock, every rut, every unexpected dip in the terrain is a potential disaster. A broken axle, a thrown shoe, a sprained ankle. Any of these mundane occurrences in your past life become major, life-threatening crises here. There's no AAA roadside assistance, no quick tow truck. You are the mechanic, the blacksmith, and the doctor, all rolled into one, and your repair kit is likely meager. Historians still argue whether the physical toll of continuous travel or the constant threat of ambush posed a greater risk to pioneers and traders. Was it the journey itself, or the dangers lurking along the way? Water, as you know, is a constant concern. You plan your route around known springs or rivers, but what if they're dry? What if a previous traveler has befouled the water? The specter of thirst is a constant companion on any journey, especially across arid plains or through parched canyons. You learn to ration, to sip, to make every drop count, knowing that the next water source could be days away, or worse, non-existent. A mainstream historical fact is the incredible amount of planning and scouting required for successful overland journeys. Pioneers would send out small parties ahead to locate water, graze land, and identify potential dangers, sometimes adding days or weeks to already lengthy trips. It's like planning the ultimate road trip, but every single rest stop is a gamble. Then there's the weather, forever unpredictable. A clear morning can turn into a blinding dust storm or a torrential downpour in a matter of hours. A sudden blizzard can trap you for days, burying your supplies and threatening to freeze you solid. You are utterly exposed to the whims of the sky, with little shelter beyond what you can hastily construct. Your pace is dictated by the sun, the storms, and the season. Pushing on through adverse conditions can be deadly, but staying put might mean running out of food or water. It's a constant, no-in decision-making process, a quirky tidbit that showcases the ingenuity born of necessity. Some wagons were equipped with large collapsible canvas boat tops, or even hollowed-out log canoes that could be lashed to the wagon frame. When a river crossing proved too deep or wide, the contents of the wagon would be loaded into this makeshift boat, and the wagon itself would be partially disassembled or floated across. This allowed pioneers to overcome significant water obstacles, though it was a laborious and often dangerous process. It's like turning your SUV into a pontoon boat mid-trip, with nothing but a few tools and a whole lot of prayer. The terrain itself is an adversary. Rivers, unbridged and often swollen by rain, are treacherous crossings, capable of sweeping away wagons, livestock, and people. Mountains are steep, rocky, and unforgiving, requiring immense effort from both humans and animals. Deserts are vast, trackless expanses where every landmark looks the same and disorientation can quickly lead to death. Your navigation skills, honed by GPS, are utterly useless here. You rely on the sun, the stars, a rudimentary compass if you have one, and the faint traces of earlier travelers. Getting lost isn't just an inconvenience, it's a terrifying descent into oblivion. Native American encounters, as mentioned before, were also a significant peril on the trail. While many interactions were peaceful, the encroachment on tribal lands often led to conflict. Travelers had to be constantly vigilant for ambushes, raids, or outright attacks, particularly in contested territories. The vastness of the land meant that help was rarely close by, and self-defense was your only option. The sheer loneliness of long journeys can be a mental strain. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, with little human interaction beyond your immediate traveling companions, if you even have any. The endless horizons, while beautiful, can also feel overwhelmingly vast and empty, emphasizing your insignificance in the face of such a landscape. This profound solitude tests your mental resilience, forcing you to find strength within yourself. Every evening, as you make camp, you carry the day's fatigue in your bones, but also the nagging worry of what the next day will bring. Will the trail be clear? Will you find water? Will you encounter trouble? The cumulative stress of constant movement, uncertain conditions, and ever-present danger wears you down. You learn to appreciate the brief moments of stillness, the fleeting beauty of a sunset, for they are rare respites in a life defined by perilous motion. Your feet ache, your muscles protest, and your mind is a weary blend of hope and dread, forever pushing forward against the endless, unpredictable challenges of the untamed trail. You've made it. You've survived the sun's scorching wrath, the pangs of hunger and thirst, the relentless grime that clung to your skin, the terrifying absence of true medicine. You navigated the brutal, shifting sands of frontier law, endured the crushing weight of isolation, mastered the subtle dance of barter, and pushed through the perpetual exhaustion of a life lived always on the edge. You've overcome the perils of the trail, the unpredictable fury of the elements, and the constant threat of wild beasts and desperate humans. Now, as the sun begins its slow descent, painting the vast western sky in hues of amber and violet, you stand perhaps at the edge of a new settlement, or looking back across the immense distance you've traversed, and you begin to truly grasp the legacy of the lonesome trail. You reflect on the harsh realities and enduring spirit of those who faced this untamed frontier, and in doing so, you find a profound, if weary, understanding of human resilience. You feel the wind on your face, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant pines. Your body aches, a constant companion now, but it's an ache born of exertion, not softness. Your hands, once soft and unblemished, are calloused and strong, marked by sun and labor. Your eyes, once accustomed to screens and artificial light, scan the horizon with a keenness born of necessity, picking out details that would have once gone unnoticed. You are fundamentally changed. The person who stepped off that stagecoach, so naive and unprepared, is long gone, replaced by someone forged in the crucible of the Wild West. This transformation, a mainstream historical fact, was common among those who endured the frontier experience. They either adapted or they perished, their softness stripped away by the raw demands of the land. Historians still argue whether the frontier truly created a unique American character of settlement, or simply amplified existing traits of individualism. Did it make people tougher, or just reveal how tough they already were. You recall the simple pleasures that became monumental joys. A cool sip of clean water, a full meal, even if it was just beans, a brief conversation with a fellow traveler, a night where the winds weren't howling. These small moments, once taken for granted, now shine like precious gems against the backdrop of constant hardship. You remember the sting of an insect bite, the rasp of a dry throat, the fear that coiled in your gut at the sound of a distant howl. These are not just memories. They are etched into your very being, lessons learned through discomfort and danger. A quirky tidbit that underscores the unique mindset fostered by this life. Many frontiersmen developed a profound, almost spiritual connection to the land itself, despite its harshness. They learned to read its subtle signs, to anticipate its moods, and to respect its power. It wasn't just dirt and rocks. It was a living, breathing entity that demanded reverence. This deep connection often coexisted with their struggle to tame it, creating a complex relationship that's hard for modern minds to fully grasp. It's like being in a very abusive relationship with the most beautiful, indifferent supermodel you've ever met. You think of the sheer courage it took for people to leave everything familiar behind and venture into this unknown. Not just the physical courage to face dangers, but the emotional courage to sever ties, to embrace uncertainty, to build a new life from scratch with nothing but their own two hands and an indomitable will. They were driven by dreams of land, of gold, of freedom, of a fresh start, dreams strong enough to overcome unimaginable obstacles. You understand now that these weren't just adventurers. They were survivors, pioneers of human endurance, the collective memory of this era. The legends and the myths begin to make more sense. The rugged individualism, the self-reliance, the often grim justice, these weren't just tropes from dime novels. They were fundamental responses to a world without established systems, a world where you had to be self-sufficient, where you had to defend your own because no one else was coming to help. It was a raw, unfiltered version of human existence. As the last rays of sun paint the clouds in fiery streaks, you feel a deep, quiet sense of pride. You faced it. You truly walked in their boots, felt their struggles, and understood their triumphs. The Wild West, you now know, was not a place for the faint of heart, or for the unprepared, or for those who clung to the comforts of civilization. It was a brutal school, a relentless teacher, but for those who endured, it etched lessons of resilience, resourcefulness, and the fundamental strength of the human spirit onto their very souls. And as the stars begin to emerge, tiny pinpricks of light in the vast, darkening canvas, you carry a new respect for the quiet heroes who forged a path through the wilderness, leaving behind a legacy that whispers through the dust and the wind. Even to this day, the shadows lengthen, stretching across the plains, softening the harsh edges of the landscape. A cool breeze whispers through the sparse vegetation, a gentle sigh of the land settling into night. The stars above begin to truly blaze, an infinite tapestry of light undimmed by city glow. Each one a silent witness to countless nights like this, stretching back through time. You breathe in deeply, the air cooler now, carrying the faint, sweet scent of sagebrush. Your eyelids feel heavy, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion finally claiming you. Not the agitated weariness of earlier nights, but a peaceful, earned fatigue. You pull your blanket tighter, feeling the soft wall against your cheek, a small comfort in the vastness. The sounds of the night begin to blend, forming a lullaby, the distant hoot of an owl, the gentle rustle of leaves, the the quiet sigh of the wind. You are safe now, truly safe, wrapped in the quiet embrace of the ancient land. Let the dreams come, soft and reassuring, of comfort, of calm, of the long journey home. The frontier sleeps, and so, at last, do you.